welcome back to another round of Basis Picks. Now this is going to be a pretty quick one. There's only 2 fights on this weekend that I've got any real interest in talking about, and for most of the other ones you probably won't know the majority of the people on them. You may not even know the people on the 2 fights I'm going to talk about, but we got to get Basis Picks back up and running, so now's as good a time as any. So without further ado, let's get into it. Right, next fight up is the co-main event on the top rank card, which is taking place in Turning Stone, New York at the Turning Stone Casino, I believe it is. Now, this is Guido Vianello versus Jonnie Rice, or Jonathan Rice if you want his full name. Now, initially, this was supposed to be Guido Vianello versus Stephen Shaw. However, Stephen Shaw got bumped up to the main event when Oscar Rivas suffered his, the newest eye injury, had to pull out of the fight. So in steps Jonnie Rice. Now, what is very exciting about this fight, I should say, this is almost like a chance for Jonnie Rice to rewrite his career from sort of how it was panning out prior to the Michael Coffey fights that he had over the last 2 years. He had one fight in 2022, which was the Coffey rematch. He won that on points, and then he had the fight with Coffey in 2021 where he actually scored the upset knockout, which no one was predicting. Now, when it comes to Jonnie Rice, if you look at his skills, his fundamentals, he's actually a very, very sound boxer. He's got a great jab, he's also got a great backhand, and he's got a good counter hook as well. The one issue that I've pretty much always had with Jonnie Rice, especially sort of in the last several years, was weight. Because even though he's a big guy, I think he's about 6'5", 6'6", but he was coming in sort of in the 280s, the 290s, the high 270s. And I always thought he was carrying a bit too much weight, was never really able to control his gas tank too tough. However, I saw him on the scales today. He came in at 274.5, and let me tell you, this is probably the best condition I've seen him in a long time. Even though he was 270 plus, his body didn't look fleshy. It didn't look like there was much excess fat or excess weight on it. He actually looked pretty slimlined, flat stomach, defined chest, defined pec. So he's clearly been putting in some work in the gym, even if it's not necessarily to lose pounds, but just to distribute it. You look at his legs, he's got some very, very thick calves. So he's got very strong legs, got strong base. It takes even though he has been stopped a couple of times, it takes a lot to actually get him out of there, which I feel is going to work to his advantage, because Guido Vianello isn't the biggest of punchers. He's also very crude in his ability. He's very much a sort of a textbook 1-2 type opponent. He does obviously try to employ combinations when he feels like he's got a guy kind of on the ropes, but Jonnie Rice is very much he operates in the style of a textbook pure boxer, sticking behind the jab, working from the outside, not giving up too many opportunities for you to land like clean work. And I feel that's pretty much what he's gonna do with Guido in this fight. He's gonna nullify any of Guido's opportunities to sort of land heavy, land clean, but I also think, again, with his superior jab, his backhand, and his ability to be able to work up close if need be, plus the fact that he is going to outweigh Guido Vianello in the ring by about 35 pounds, I think, give or take. So even though he's the slightly shorter guy, he's the bigger guy, much bigger, and he may employ a tactic of step on the outside, double jab his way onto the inside, hold, push back to the ropes, and try to wear Guido out that way, as well as with well-placed punches to head and body. So yeah, I haven't given you much in terms of Guido's keys to victory, because as I said, fundamentally I think he's very crude. I don't think he is going to offer a huge amount in this fight, and even though Jonnie Rice has got 6 defeats, they're all to very, very credible opponents. And yeah, Guido has not been in the ring with someone of his caliber yet. And you know, he's not considered a top 30 guy at this point. But Jonnie Rice is on the ascendancy. He's almost having that Indian summer. As I said, he is coming in tremendous condition from what I've seen. So I'm not as worried about his gas tank as I would be based on previous performances. So as long as he manages those first couple of rounds, I see him quite comfortably winning this fight. And I would not be surprised if he ends up stopping it inside the distance, probably round 8, round 9. But outside of that, I think it will be a very clear UD decision if there is not a very late knockout. So yeah, my prediction is Jonnie Rice to win decisively. Okay, finally, the main event of that card. This is F.A. Ajagba versus Stephen Shaw. Now, as I said, Stephen Shaw was supposed to be in the co-main initially, got bumped up to the main when Oscar Rivas dropped out. So Oscar Rivas' loss is Stephen Shaw's gain. Now, 2 things that are going to be key in this match is who establishes their jab and who establishes their distance quicker. F.A. Ajagba is a decent, sort of decent prospect level, sort of coming up to that fringe, you know, sort of that fringe contender-ish status, I want to say. I mean, he's not at world level yet, nowhere near, but he's, you know, maybe that sort of the fringe top 10, top 15 type levels is where you can maybe put him in. But he's got a pretty good work rate. He does work quite well behind his jab. He's got a very dangerous and a very fast backhand that he does employ, very similar to you know, sort of Deontay Wilder of old. Not as skilled as landing that backhand, but when it does land, it normally causes a lot of issues. But his biggest drawback is that he is very sort of rudimentary textbook. He's a 1-2 type guy. Anytime he throws a hook or he throws a uppercut or anything outside of a 1-2, it never looks natural. Like it's just you know, an instant reaction. It looks like it's a shot he's thinking about, and it's not like he's setting someone up and thinking about when's the best place to throw it. It's just like, oh, I see their head there, okay, maybe I should throw it now. And it almost always looks like there's a pause in the action. But again, the shots that you need to worry about from him is the jab, which is pretty much textbook, very, very nice, very smooth, and that backhand, because if it lands, there is problems. His footwork isn't the best, not the quickest of guys, but he's also not the slowest either, and he comes in shape, so he can handle rounds from round 1 to round 12 if necessary. And this is a 12 rounder. I believe this is his second 12 rounder in his career, so he needs to be in shape. And he came in about 235. He looks lean, looks cut up, he looks in good nick. Stephen Shaw, on the other hand, to me, I was a bit concerned by his weight at the weigh-ins. He came in at 239. Now, Stephen Shaw, I believe, is 6 foot. I think he's like 6'2", 6'3". He doesn't particularly wear that weight well, but you know, he also kind of reminds me a little bit of the previous heavyweights from, you know, sort of the 60s and the 70s, whereby they used to have that little bit of excess body fat, but they could go for days if need be, just because, you know, they had the energy reserves, they trained in a specific way. Stephen Shaw has got very good foot movement. He's got you know, his angles and his level changing is quite, you know, it's quite tidy, quite neat. He's been looking for this kind of opportunity. He's got it now. He does crack as well. I'm not sure if I would say to the level of F.A. Ajagba, but he definitely can hurt, and if he lands clean. This fight, I think, is going to be one predominantly, as I said, who establishes their jab and who establishes their rhythm and the distance control best. If Stephen Shaw can use his footwork to offset Ajagba, constantly turn him and make him have to reset before he can throw that jab and that backhand, I think he's actually got the quicker hands of the two in combination, especially in close rather than at huge distance. So his best bet may be to maybe dangerously stay mid-range, and sort of just get those shots off in and out before Ajagba's able to retaliate, because he's not particularly a counter puncher. Stephen Shaw definitely, I would say, has got the better fundamentals, better footwork, as I said before, but Ajagba probably hits harder and has a better gas tank. So what I predict Stephen Shaw is going to do is he's going to fast start, try and rack up early rounds, possibly even hurt Ajagba, similar how Frank Sanchez did. And then if he's got him in a bad enough state, try to take him out. If he's not necessarily in that bad of a state, then he might ease off the gas and just try and work the jab and work around, sort of just work around him for sort of the next 3, 4, 5 rounds and sort of win a clear points decision. I do actually think that tactic will work in this fight, and ultimately, without going too much further in depth, because I will do that on Tuesday on the breakdown, I do predict that Stephen Shaw will win this fight. There's a reason he moved from PBC to sign with Top Rank, and there's a reason Top Rank picked him up. They very rarely pick up scrubs, and that he isn't. This is the opportunity he has been waiting for, and I do expect him to take it with both hands. So while I don't expect him to knock out Ajagba, I do think he will do enough to get a points decision, and yeah, that is my prediction for this fight. So Stephen Shaw via points. Now that's the end of the video. If you've got your predictions, please put them down below. Let me know if I was right on the Kim Clavel and Jessica Nelly Plata fight, because I don't have access to see that over here in the UK. But yeah, anyone who has seen it, please let me know. And with the other two, like I said, leave your predictions down below. Let's see if you're right, let's see if I'm right. But for right now, thank you very much. That's Basis Picks. Locked.